The Chicago Bears and Green Bay Packers are set to play for the third time in 35 days. But now this time, both of them on losing streaks, both looking to play a lot better football on Saturday. A lot to prove and a lot to get through in today's Crossover Thursday, Locked On Bears, Locked On Packers podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome into today's Locked On Packers and Locked On Bears crossover podcast. My name is Lauren Cox, host of Locked On Bears, alongside Peter Bukowski from Locked On Packers. And I want to thank you for making either Locked On Bears or Locked On Packers your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. And our crossover Thursday is presented by PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app today and use our promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. On the show today, we're breaking down this matchup for the third time in barely a month. These two teams know each other pretty well. I'm not expecting a lot of surprises, but yet both teams have some injury question marks. The guy's coming off an injury, and both teams have been playing pretty well. So all of a sudden, we still have a lot to learn. Maybe both teams have a lot to learn about themselves more than each other, including for the Packers, like who their head coach is going to be in the long term. Peter, I want to start there. Not that LaFleur is actually going to go anywhere, but like, is that a real distraction for the team? Because it's sort of floating around nationally of like, well, is he going to get an extension? Is he not? Is he just kind of floating out there? Could he leave? Could he not? Is that a real distraction at all? Or is it just, pushing it off to the future?
This is the dumbest storyline. I hate it. I'm not saying the question is dumb, because I don't think it is. I just think as a distraction for this team, if they're distracted by it, he should be fired. Like, that's the reality. And I don't think he should be fired. But I mean, like, if they're letting it seep into the locker room, that's ridiculous. This is a playoff game against your division rival, a team that you blew a game that you had one cold if Romeo Doubs just catches the ball on an onside kick. And it still took 16 more things after that for the Packers to lose that game. That would be absurd. And I think that would be the kind of thing that makes you reconsider what your locker room is made of, what your coach is. I don't think it's happening right now is really the thing. And this is why podcasts exist. This is why we have space to talk. I just can't imagine it's affecting that locker room in any way. And I think part of that is that locker room knows how good they are. That team knows how good they are. And they remember what this looked like in Denver. In the second half, they're up 9 against the Broncos. They are rolling, and Jordan Love rears back to throw a deep ball to Christian Watson. And I'm telling you, Lauren, speaking for Packer fans everywhere, when Jordan Love let that ball go, every Packer fan watching went, "We're going to the Super Bowl." Every single one. Because they're coming off, I'm serious, because they're coming off the Lions, the impressive Lions performance. Beat down is probably overstating it, but they dominated that Lions team that night. Like, that was a 10-point game late. They kicked a field goal to make it a 1-possession game. The Packers controlled that game from start to finish. The Bears game the next week, an emotional win, right? And then you're going to Denver, the number 1 seed in the AFC, and they were controlling that game too. And they're up 2 scores, and they're taking a deep shot. Like, this was the whole problem with Matt LaFleur. Was he was too conservative. He played not to lose against the Eagles, played not to lose against the Panthers, played not to lose against the Browns. That was not what he was doing. And, things sort of fell apart from there. Christian Watson got hurt. Zach Tom had just been hurt. Micah Parsons gets hurt in the second half. Evan Williams gets hurt in the second half. And all of that is true. And so they know how good this team is in that locker room. They still believe that they believe they can beat this Bears team. They believe they can go to Seattle in the divisional round and beat that team. Like, this team still has that belief, which is why I don't think the Bears, the coaching thing is something that is really on top of their mind. I want to ask you about this, because I saw some Bears content creators talking about, and I think some Bears players talking about the first game against the Packers. They kind of hyped themselves up a little too much, and they came out and really did not play well in the first half of that first game at all. And it was still a close game at halftime, because the Packers had some unforced errors and other things that allowed them to stay in that game. And then they kind of did the same thing in the second game too. They didn't really make that adjustment. So what are you expecting from the guys? What are you expecting from Ben Johnson? Because Ben Johnson, like, there's no off switch for him. Like, it's going to be an intense week. He's going to be as fired up as ever. And so it's going to be up to these players to find in a playoff game, like, how do you stay even keeled for a group that outside of a couple players have just never been in this position before?
Yeah, I think there's a bit of a trial by fire there where they just like, you got to just kind of learn and do it on the fly, like rather than try and tone things down too much, because I think they tried to tone things down a little bit against the Lions in week 18. And Ben Johnson said, we're going with a more simple game plan, a little less motion, because we know the Lions are so multiple on defense, and they still started really slow in that game. Like, they haven't been able to kind of fine tune exactly where they need to be at the very beginning of games. And I think there's a feeling of like, well, maybe this will be the week they figure out where they need to be at the beginning of games. But also there's a feeling like, well, even if they're not where they need to be at the start, they will be by the fourth quarter, and they're always going to be in it, even if they're down a couple scores entering that period. So
yeah, they're so annoying.
yeah, it's like, so it's hard to panic about the slow starts, but also it's becoming a frustration of like, yeah, why? It's always something different, right? It's a false start here. It's a drop pass there. It's a blitz that they don't pick up properly here. It's a run stuff on third down there. Like, it's not one player failing consistently at the beginning of the games. It's something differently going wrong that eventually they get there.
It's just like a Caleb miss on first down on a slant. It's like, okay, guys there, like you just missed it. And all of a sudden now you're in 2nd and 10 and you got to figure out where to go from there.
But that's the thing though. Like, that was the case early in the season in their slow starts, but like the last 2 losses to the 49ers and Lions, he's been pretty dialed in. He had like one bad throw in the first quarter against Detroit, and that was his only true miss early on. Third quarter and later in the game, he missed some throws for sure, but he hasn't been inaccurate at the beginning of games, even when the offense is slow. And that's the frustrating part. It's like, he's doing his job, and now they're quote unquote failing him at some times early on. Like, everything still has to come together nicely.
And that's not where you want to be in the playoffs. Neither of these teams playing their best football coming into this game, which is what makes it so fascinating, because I went back and I remembered the Packers playing better earlier in the first game than they actually did. Like, I felt like in the first half, that could have been a 14-21, 3 kind of score. And it wasn't, right? Like, that game could have been more out of hand than it got. And I think in both games, you look at the Packers and you're looking at missed opportunities. I mean, they go 0-5 in the red zone. They have the fumble in the red zone. And I know Malik Willis was a part of that, but like, Josh Jacobs is your core player. Like, that he is your star running back, and he fumbles. Now, he was hurt. And I think that was part of it too, is you basically didn't see Josh Jacobs in the second game after that fumble. And it wasn't a, sit down, young man kind of fumble, like benching. It was no, you obviously are hurting the team by trying to play hurt. And he's off the injury report this week. I think that's a huge one for the Packers, because go back to the fourth quarter of the first game. It's that toss run where he like splits the defense like he's Dwayne Wade on a pick and roll in like 2012 for the Miami Heat. Like, it was that kind of thing where like 5 different Bears had a shot at him, and he just like slips through all of them and picks up a 20-yard gain. That was a huge play in the game. And getting, like, for example, that version of Josh Jacobs, to your point about fast starts, if you get a better version of Josh Jacobs and they can play a little bit more balanced offense, I think that would really help the Packers. I mean, the first drive, second game, they drove right down the field, and they blow it on 4th and goal. It's like, if they score on that drive, who knows what's different about the rest of that game. So I think at the fast start, I kind of think it's going to be another slow start for both of these teams. But if one of them can get off to a fast start, I think that it's going to create such an advantage, because it's going to amplify the anxiety that both teams are already feeling. I said earlier in the week, Lauren, that the fact that the Packers drew the Bears amplifies the pressure on the team. Like, if this is the Eagles, I don't think they have the same pressure to go into Philly and win.
Totally.
Because this is the Bears, because they are favored to win, according to our friends at FanDuel. I think that amplifies the pressure on the Packers. And I think it was Greg Braggs who pointed out, like, this is going to be an electric crowd in Chicago, but if the Packers go up 7-0, it could get really quiet in that stadium. And that's something, if you're the Packers, like, I just think that's a bigger advantage for Green Bay in a situation like this than it is the other side for Chicago. And just because of the experience of these two teams, like, the Packers have been in these moments. It's a young team, but they've still been in these moments. The Bears haven't. And so I think it's going to be, that first quarter is going to be, there are going to be a lot of tight sphincters in Chicago.
It definitely could be some ugly NFC North, ground and pound kind of start to that football game. But we'll get into some of those matchups that'll shape a hot start versus a slow start, including Jordan Love coming back from injury for the first time in a couple weeks. I want to get into that dynamic as well as we continue our crossover Thursday Locked On Packers, Locked On Bears podcast. Our Crossover Thursday podcast today is brought to you by Rocket Money. Let's be real. Managing your finances can feel overwhelming. Between subscriptions you forgot about, bills that keep going up, and trying to figure out where all your money actually goes each month, it's easy to feel like you're losing control. And who has the time to track every transaction and hunt down all the hidden fees? That's where Rocket Money comes in, the personal finance app that helps you take control. It finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions for you. It monitors your spending and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It's a great way to just see everything all in one place, right? Instead of having to log into your bank app to see your checking account, log into your credit card app to see those payments, you can have it all in one place and track for you so you don't have to go through spreadsheets and try and do all that math yourself. So let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Join at rocketmoney.com/locked on. That's rocketmoney.com/locked on. One more time, rocketmoney.com/locked on. Our Crossover Thursday podcast is also brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. The wildcard round is here, and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Every game day during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action. Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, FanDuel users will get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app. It's loaded up with multiple profit boosts that then you can apply to the bets you like most. So right now, the Packers are 1.5-point favorites coming into Soldier Field. That line may keep moving between now and Saturday, but if you like that bet, the boosts are going to give you more juice on those bets you already like, because you make your picks and then apply your profit boosts to go after even bigger payouts while the playoffs get rolling. So visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day. So as we continue our Crossover Thursday, Locked On Bears, Locked On Packers podcast, Lauren Cox from Locked On Bears here with Peter Bukowski from Locked On Packers. Both of these teams getting some key players back from injury. For Chicago, Rome Odunze fully expected to play at receiver, will not be 100% for sure, but hasn't played in the last, 5-6 weeks of the regular season in anticipation for building up for this playoff game.
He hasn't played 100% all year, Lauren, it seems like, or at least not since like Halloween.
He has been dealing with a stress fracture in his foot since then that has been on and off the injury report. But yes, he still has had a pretty good season when he's been out there, but it doesn't feel like it's the full version of him. And then we'll add in slot cornerback Kyler Gordon has been activated from the practice window off of injured reserve. And I think there's an optimism that he may be able to go, but I think that one is going to be a lot more of a potential, game time type decision. He was limited in practice on Tuesday with the groin injury. A few other guys have been limited, but we'll see how those guys play out. But those could be big boosts for Chicago. For Green Bay, Jordan Love has missed the last 2 games coming off the concussion. Obviously not a physical injury where like you're worried about, the mobility or the arm or whatever, but still a scary injury and something that has kept him away for 2 weeks. I remember last year when he missed a couple games, his first game back against Minnesota, maybe not his best in that one in a loss. So is there a real concern about rust, or is the feeling like at this stage of his career, he'll plug and play and be just fine?
You know what? We found out this week that Jordan Love took most of the snaps last week in practice, which is, I feel so bad for Clayton Tune because he's a 3rd-string quarterback. He's made 1 career start. He gets like 10 reps all week probably, and then has to go play Brian Flores. that's shit. And then Lauren, they cut him yesterday. So it's just like he got thrown to the wolves. Thanks Clayton. We'll see you later. Like it's just one of the brutal realities of the NFL. And to your point, if had the Packers needed to win the game against the Vikings, Jordan Love would have played. And in fact, had they lost that Cowboys game that they tied, that game would have been for the 7th seed. Jordan Love would have had to play. So really an interesting thing there. And by the way, had Romeo Doubs caught the onside kick, the Packers would have been playing for the NFC North crown potentially against the Minnesota Vikings there on Sunday. So that's an interesting wrinkle in all of this too. I'm not worried about rust with Jordan Love. I think that they know what I think having played the Bears twice really helps. Like the game plan, it's not gonna feel different to him. He's not gonna be surprised by anything Dennis Allen is going to do. They're gonna have a plan, and I think they're gonna have a good plan for this team. And so that's not something I'm worried about. I'm looking more at Zach Tom as someone coming back. He hasn't played since the Broncos game. It's probably the healthiest he's going to have been since week 1. Remember, he got hurt in week 1 against the Lions, played hurt, and was really not healthy, has not been healthy for most of the year, unfortunately. And he's seemingly trending toward playing, and that would be a big boost for this Packers offensive line, because Jordan Love from a clean pocket is terrific, has been, top 3 in all the numbers from a clean pocket all season. And we saw it in the first game when the Bears tried to blitz him. He diced them up 9 of 12. All 3 touchdowns were against the blitz. The Packers protect really, really well in those situations. Although they've been an inconsistent blocking team all year. Like I can't remember the last time we went into a Packers-Bears game and I can say comfortably the Bears have the better offensive line. Like it's not even really close.
Yeah.
That's crazy to say. I wanted to ask you about the Kyler Gordon thing, because it was like a slew of soft tissue injuries, right? Like groin, hamstring, calf. And that stuff is like notoriously tricky. Now it's the playoff game. So you're kind of going, well, next week doesn't matter if there is a next week, if you lose this week, right? So you kind of have to just say, if he really hurts one of those injuries again, he's got the whole offseason to rehab if you lose. And as Bears fans have been quick to point out this week, this is a Bears team playing with house money. So you kind of have nothing to lose. On the other hand, they are the 2 seed. They are the home team. My question to you is, if CJ Gardner-Johnson can't go, who's playing the slot for this team if Kyler Gordon also can't go?
Yeah, there's a desperation there of like, they need Kyler Gordon back because CJ Gardner-Johnson suffered a concussion last week against the Lions, and we've kind of seen, it seems like more universally across the league now, like concussions are at least like a 1 week out type of injury.
I think the average time to return to practice is 9 days this year in the NFL from a concussion, which tells you the protocols are working. Early on, I was pretty dubious of the protocols being effective, because it seemed like you could get hurt and then play the next week, like almost always. And now it seems the opposite is true.
And add in, it's a short week, even only by a day, still right. Every day counts in this matter. So yes, I think the plan A obviously is please Kyler Gordon, even at 70%. That's
help us, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're our only hope.
Yes, because plan B, if healthy, would be Nick McLeod, who also was on the injury report with an illness and didn't play last week. So it seems to be in the clear at this point, and he has been abysmal every time he steps on the field. They have a couple, like when he was out last week, Nick McLeod, they brought in a guy off the bench, Jalen Jones, who hasn't played much slot cornerback in his career. So it's a disaster if Kyler Gordon and CJ Gardner-Johnson can't play, especially because we just saw Jalen Johnson have one of his worst games last week, and Nashawn Wright has been a lot. I mean, he's a true boom or bust cornerback, and we saw a lot of bust the last couple of games. So this is as bad as the cornerback room has looked in Chicago, and it's why I'm nervous about, you talk about Dennis Allen and the blitzing, right? Like for some reason he insists on man coverage behind the blitz every time, and Jordan Love tore that apart. Jared Goff just tore that apart, and why they refuse to even try zone blitzing when you've got hobbled and injured and backup cornerbacks out there is beyond me. But like you mentioned earlier, like Jordan Love isn't going to be surprised by anything Dennis Allen does. I hope he is by some zone blitzes, because that could make a huge difference in this game.
Yeah, and like I don't think in a playoff game that's the time to try and play a style that you haven't played all year. I think it would have been nice from a Bears perspective to have worked some of that in the last month. Like, hey, let's try some of these zone blitzes. Let's try some of these simulated pressures. Like, watch the Packers tape. They do this all the time. Like, they were dropping Micah Parsons in coverage. They dropped 275-pound Chicagoland native Lucas Van Ness into coverage at times, and they still get home because simulated pressures. This is de rigueur around the league, Lauren. I know you know that. I know Dennis Allen knows that. I know Ben Johnson knows that.
So they do it.
And yet here they are. Again, I think you really do fall into a difficult situation in any playoff game. And this is not Bears specific. This is Packers specific too, where you go into a playoff game going, we got to change who we are. Like, I just don't think that inspires confidence in your team. And so it is a tricky situation. Now, the saving grace, and this is something I wanted to ask you about, weather. It was windy in the Windy City when they played in Chicago. I don't know how much it affected the actual game in that game, but we are expecting some precipitation, snow, wind, a wintry mix in all of that. To me, that favors a Chicago team that is the better running team, the better trenches team on offense, and the team that has historically this season. I mean, this is one of the great turnover teams of the century in terms of turnover differential and their turnover differential compared to the rest of the team. I think they're 6 turnovers clear of the second best team in terms of turnover differential. So that would be the one thing where you're going, okay, well, if Kyler Gordon is not 100%, how do you slow down this passing game? Well, the answer might be Mother Nature.
Or you stay in base defense and just pray. Like, I think Green Bay is going to want to spread them out quite a bit when they can, but they'll hopefully, I think from a Chicago perspective, they want the weather to be that factor. But I think I'm the Packers, like, it's going to be wet and rainy, but it's not going to be cold or anything, or like aggressively cold.
It's not going to be freezing.
Yeah, so you can sit back in the pocket and still have all day to throw, and I think eventually he'll find something. But we'll take a look at like what the Packers have to do to win this game and to pull off the upset, what Chicago has to do to avoid another playoff disappointment against the Green Bay Packers as we continue our crossover Thursday Locked On Packers, Locked On Bears podcast. Our crossover Thursday is brought to you by our friends at Ultimate QB Football Legend. You've ever wished to become a pro quarterback and get drafted first overall, maybe like a Caleb Williams to the Bears, for example? Well, now you can, because there's a mobile game just for you called Ultimate QB Football Legend. In this game, it's your job to step in the cleats of a number 1 draft pick quarterback, and it's your job to lead your team to greatness and help turn a failing franchise into a dynasty. This is the number 1 QB career mode game on mobile app stores, and it introduces the most realistic environment with full career control. You're training and upgrading yourself. You can even give input to your general manager on roster moves for your team as you deal with the ups and downs of a quarterback career. Ultimate QB is totally free to play. It has no ads and it works 100% offline. Just head over to ultimate-qb.com. That's ultimate-qb.com, or search for Ultimate QB in your app store. And we've got something special just for Locked On listeners. If you use our promo code Locked On, all caps, in the game's store, you're going to get a free boost at the start of your quarterback career. Ultimate QB Legend. QB1. It's your legacy. As we continue our crossover Thursday, Locked On Packers, Locked On Bears podcast, I want to thank you again for making Locked On Bears or Locked On Packers your first listen of the day. We really do it for you everydayers that are tuning in 5 days a week and now tuning in for your third Bears-Packers crossover of the season. It feels like, Peter, like I don't want to be redundant and talk about like the same things we've talked about in some of the other matchups as far as like, yes, both teams are trying to run the ball and control the clock, and the Bears are going to want to generate turnovers and get Jordan Love to make some kind of mistake, or the Packers offense to have those self-inflicted wounds. But it does feel like, at least from a defensive perspective, that's kind of what it comes down to Chicago. Like if the Packers are on their P's and Q's all game and really don't get in their own way, they're at least going to get field goals consistently on drives. And if they can finish in the red zone, I know that's been a little bit of a challenge for them, then they're going to have a lot of points. And it's a shootout that the Bears will struggle to catch up with. But I think the one sign of encouragement I found this week was that I read that Nathaniel Hackett visited Packers practice today. So well, their offense, it's that guy hanging around town.
Well, you know what? The last time this red zone offense, I mean, not the last time, because this has been a good red zone offense in general this year. They had a bad stretch there where they go 2 games where they don't punt and lose both games because they could not score consistently in the red zone. They took the collar in the Broncos and Bears games combined. But in 2020, they had a name for it with Nathaniel Hackett. They called it the gold zone because and this is true, they watched Austin Powers Goldmember and he always said, "I love gold." And it became a thing. And so like there were multiple times you could actually hear on the broadcast, they would score and you'd hear someone, they'd look up to the heavens and scream, "I love gold." It was like a running bit. And that was Nathaniel Hackett. He was the red zone and third down guy in 2020. That 2020 Packers offense is probably the second or third, I think it's second best Aaron Rodgers season of his career. A historically good, you look at points per drive, historically good offense, in part because they were just money in the red zone. That's why the Josh Jacobs thing is so important for them, because Josh Jacobs, like Jordan Love, if they did the Matthew Stafford thing where I think he has 16 like 1-yard touchdowns this year. That was Aaron Rodgers, by the way, in 2020. He threw less than 5-yard touchdowns. Like he had like 20 of them. The Packers run the ball inside the 5, and they are really, really good at it. Josh Jacobs inside the 5 is just money. It's why his fumble was so out of character for them. And so this is a situation for the Packers where getting that guy healthy, I think, really is a salve for your red zone issues. He was hurt against Denver, playing hurt. And then, was even more hurt, I think, against the Bears. And so that's why him being off the injury report this week is really an important thing for them, because to me, you're right. This game is as simple as don't turn the ball over and be mildly effective in the red zone. And I think you give yourself a really good chance. From a Bears perspective, I mean, I wouldn't think they would change too much. Like they had the game in both cases come down to 1 or 2 plays at the end. If you're the Bears, like, don't you just feel like we're just going to try and keep doing what we've been doing and hope we play a little bit better than we did last Sunday against Detroit?
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to keep doing what you were doing in the first 3 quarters.
Right.
Like you do, like, yes, there's a trust that like, hey, no matter what, they'll be able to figure it out by the end. But the idea is that you don't want to keep putting yourself in those positions to do so. And I think a lot of it is kind of it
wasn't like they played out of character, though. They just didn't execute.
Well, exactly. So like just start. Okay, I see what you mean. Like you don't have to have a new plan. You just have to do that plan.
Right.
Better. Yes. But I think a lot of what the Bears need to do is kind of like
easier said than done in a playoff game.
Well, yes. But I think it's the matching inverse of what you talk about for Green Bay in terms of like, the Bears have been terrible between the 20s, but pretty darn good at stopping in the red zone and holding you to field goals. So they got to keep doing that. They need Green Bay to make a mistake. And then like the other big factor the last few weeks is like the time of possession game. The Bears have just not been able to get off the field defensively and really like stay on the field offensively. So then the defense gets gassed and starts playing even worse once you get into the second quarter. Like, so they just need the offense. You don't have to score touchdowns on your first 3 drives, but if you can just get it to be a 8 or 9 play drive and take some time and run the ball a little bit more and take some time off the clock and keep Jordan Love and the Packers offense on the sideline, like that's been such a big weapon for the Bears offense at times this season that has been missing the last couple of weeks. Like, and if you can just slow things down that way and then play your best ball in the second half and in the fourth quarter, I think that's the formula to victory here. But I certainly think both of these teams are inconsistent enough that it's hard, at least lately they've been inconsistent enough that it's hard to trust that like either one's necessarily going to do exactly what they are supposed to do and set out to do as a pretty clear plan to victory.
I think if you're the Packers, you look at what the Lions did last week and you go, that's exactly why we lost the second game. Like from a Packers perspective, they're watching that Lions game going, they did all the same stupid things we did. And like I was looking at the numbers. The Lions averaged 6 yards per play in that game. That would be like top 5 around the league if that was your year-long number. It's 1 for 4 in the red zone. And Jared Goff had 330 yards in the game. And you're just sort of like, if you average 6 yards per play and you get into the red zone 4 times, and the other team, by the way, gets into the red zone once, that was the Bears, you have to win that game. And frankly, you should win that game by 10 plus. And I think if you ask Lions fans or the Lions players, they would go, we should have won that game by 10 plus.
I agree.
You might ask Bears fans and they might say the same thing. Like it was that game. It was the Bears were lucky to be in it at the end just because like I thought the Lions controlled that game really from start to finish. But this has been the problem playing the Bears for the Packers in 2 games. I have been saying on the show all week, the Packers have outplayed the Bears for 118 of 120 regular minutes. And they're 1-1. And so that's frustrating. If you're a Packer fan, you're like, well, it's like the John Lovitz, I can't believe I'm losing to this guy. Cause you're like, we from a Packers perspective, they're going, we're better than this team. And they got us because we did stupid stuff. Lauren, I wish I could sit here and tell you that would change on Saturday. It hasn't changed all year, really. Like the Packers' biggest enemy, the Packers' hardest opponent to overcome has been wearing green and yellow all year. Like they have been their own worst enemies. And so that is why, from that perspective, I sit here and I go, if the Packers play their A game, I don't think the Bears have an A game to match their A game. I just don't. But we haven't really seen a Packers A game this year. So how can I confidently sit here and predict an A game from the Packers? Like I do think there's a scenario where the Packers win this game by 10 points. How can I predict that though? You know what I mean? Like that's kind of where and that's the frustration with this team. And that's where, bringing this back to your original question on Matt LaFleur, that's why fans are frustrated with Matt LaFleur, because they know how good this team looks at times. And it's just like, can you stop having the dumbest penalty at the dumbest time? And some of it has been a little unlucky, right? Like, go back to the second game. It's 3rd and 20. And Warren Brinson, if he gets his hand 6 inches down Caleb Williams' body, even if he doesn't sack Caleb Williams, and it's not a face mask, the game might be over. If he has to throw that ball away instead of taking the face mask, now it's 4th and 20, and they end up scoring, and the game changes because of it. If they have to punt the ball away, they're probably not getting the ball back, and the Packers win that game, and everything is different. So I still think that the Packers are going to win this game. I have been saying since the second Packers game, I was like, I want to see that team again. And I think the Packers are going to play a very, very, very motivated brand of football. And I think the reason that we talked about in the middle, the sort of the anxiety that will be in that stadium if the Bears don't get off to a fast start, and given how often they have gotten off to slow starts, I think you just sort of combine the urgency that the Packers organizationally have. Like I said, week 1, I told Matt Derry, I said, I think the Packers need to win this game more than the Lions, and that's why they will. Sometimes it comes down to stuff like that. And I just think there is going to be an intensity gap and not a focus gap even, but just sort of like an anxiety gap that is going to be difficult to overcome. Plus, I just think the Packers have the better quarterback, and sometimes these games come down to that. And so I think Caleb Williams can get there. I just don't think he's there yet. So I'm gonna take the Packers. Probably not surprising to anyone listening, Bears fan or Packer fan. What do you got?
The Packers like stat thing that has been living rent free in my head all week is I think you retweeted it, or I don't know if you tweeted or retweeted it, that the Bears have not beaten Jordan Love when he's finished the game that he started. Like when a Packer started,
we haven't beaten Matt LaFleur in a game where his quarterback started and finished the game.
That one has been hard for me to shake, and I haven't been able to like refute it, right? And be like, well, it's like, no, that's a really good point. I think if there was ever a situation where you're taking a Packers team that you could beat with their quarterback starting and finishing the game, it's the inconsistent one we're seeing right now.
You're right. You're right.
But there is not an outcome in this game that's going to surprise me. If the Packers win by 10, I wouldn't be stunned. If the Bears win by 10, I wouldn't be stunned. If it's an overtime game, I won't be stunned. Like I could really see this going.
I don't know if like my heart can handle an overtime game, Lauren. I don't know if I can do that.
I think we'll get some excitement. We'll get some theatrics. I
can't wait. This is why we love sports. Like games like this are why this is a blood and guts, heart and soul, mouth, like heart in your throat for 60 minutes kind of game. And I don't think anyone is going to go into the offseason feeling great. I really like, I think it could be that kind of like, unless the Packers, or I don't think either team, I really don't think either team is going to win by like 14 and it's comfortable in the fourth quarter. I think this is going to be gut wrenching for both sides. This is one of those, like, you know, make sure you have enough alcohol on hand when you're watching kind of game.
I will formally officially say I'll take the Bears, but I don't feel confident in picking either team. But hey, we still have plenty of time to break down this game all week long on both the Locked On Packers and Locked On Bears podcasts. So make sure you're subscribed on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts to keep getting all of our daily Bears and Packers analysis right in your podcast feeds. Make sure you come on back tomorrow for more. And of course, we live to break down the game afterward on Saturday and podcasts on Monday and everything else. We've got you covered on your respective teams. So for Peter Bukowski from Locked On Packers, I'm Lauren Cox from Locked On Bears, and we will talk to you again tomorrow.